I started playing GW2 back in the later half of 2022 to the half point of 2023 and discovered the entire game with the exception of End of Dragon. And I would say I played the game for about a few hours, few days a week, give or take, on and off for about 9 to 10-ish months. And while I do enjoy my time with GW2 for a good portion of that time, it did become very clear to me that the game design, which put heavy emphasis on the horizontal progressions, the PvE, and the achievement system, which by the way, I have to say, that is one of the most blatantly boring and pointless thing I've ever seen. That, along with the game main audience, weren't just my fit. Though GW2 is still one of the most fair MMO even till this day despite many shortcomings with a dedicated diamond populations. With that general premise aside, I came across an upcoming expansion for GW2 and that it was going to include a new weapon yet again for every class, this time a spear. GW2 class weapon is the one specific subject that I want to discuss for a while, but I really wasn't planning on making this video to be honest. But after seeing the spear announcement, I really just want to put this piece out there once and for all. There is a trend with GW2 regarding the way it chooses to expand its classes skills, being that they typically add new weapons along with new specialization every expansion, but recently, from what I looked into, they're leaning towards just allowing each class to wield a weapon that they weren't able to previously. There are quite a number of issues with this route, so let's go over this. The first and main problem is that this pretty much eliminates the uniqueness within each class. The whole point of a class system is so that each will be distinguished from one another, be it the mechanic around a specific class or the weapons they're able to equip. Not to mention, this would make it pretty awkward and confusing lore-wise, because think about it. Why in the hell would a class like an elementalist be using a goddamn pistol or a spear? Same goes for Guardian. Guardians are more like paladins from my understanding. They use shields and swords for the most part. Sure, you can give it a few other weapons, but a spear? That's a warrior weapon, I would argue. Another example, I don't know in what world that a mesmer, who is essentially an illusionist and a master of deception, be pulling out a rifle of all things, or even a torch. What are you going to do with a torch? You create illusions, not spit fire. It seems as though the team behind GW2 are under the impression that they're running out of ideas to expand or diversify each class skill tree, but that couldn't be further away from the truth. All you're doing by giving every class access to most weapons you've introduced since the launch of the game is blurring the distinction between each of them to the point that the only reason you would choose one over the other is color. I mean, one is green, the other is blue, so I guess that's one way of choosing your favorite class. I mean, come on. Now, I'm not just going to list my problems without providing a viable solution, and that is to simply add more skills to the already existing weapons for each and every class in the game. Now first, I already know some are going to voice their concerns about this already, and the main one being that it could make it more difficult to know which set of skills your opponent may be using, going by the weapons they will. To break it down, people like the idea of knowing what skills they can expect as opposed to, let's say, your utilities for examples. You can swap them however you like, which leaves your opponent guessing what tricks you might have up your sleeve. But here's the issue. You are assuming it has to be done that way, or that's the only way of doing it. Newsflash, it isn't. What you can simply do is introduce an entirely new set of fixed skills rather than being able to freely swap each skill for a specific weapon. Let's take a warrior greatsword as an example. You can just add in a whole new set of 5 skills that are predetermined, meaning you can't customize each skill within that new set. They'll be set that way as it was with the core greatsword skills. This will put an ease to the concerns that a lot of people might have, since just one use of that greatsword skill would give you an idea of what you can expect. Obviously, it would have to look visually different enough, whether it be the flashiness or animation wise, which is another thing by the way, with a lot of these weapon skills animations, a good chunk of them seems to be using the same animation, and I'm wondering if it's a budget issue or the lack of creativity, because a spear is one of the most versatile weapons out there, and there's no shortage or lack of showcases available in how the weapon can be used or performed, whether it be in regards to martial arts or video games. Maybe they want to put this weapon out as fast as they can, considering the game has been on decline for a while, for years. Who knows? But I think it will certainly have its own repercussion in the long run. Because on top of every class having access to most weapons, the animations of these skills looking essentially the same also cuts off the line of distinction. So while each class, while they do retain some of their own mechanics, it isn't enough to stand out in the crowd. Now, obviously, another way you can add more variety to each class would be to just have new individual spec. It doesn't have to be an expansion style spec where it changes the entire core class mechanic, but more like the core spec that retain whatever style you're playing at the moment. Or you can even implement additional mechanics unique to each class. It could be like a mode or a state, or just simply expand the skill slots by 1 to 2. You can name it legendary skills, why not? The game loves shoving legendary in your face. You can limit that to maybe 2 skills if you're that concerned about balance issues. This could further emphasize the class systems in GW2 even more. To give some ideas out there, a Mesmer could perhaps attain 2 new skills. It could be legendary skills or whatever, additional utilities, whatever you want, related to phantasms. If a Mesmer is the master of deception, then make it so by letting it create a clone that look exactly, and I mean exactly, as the original player in regards to the boons or the passive skills they have. And you could even use some of your skills that are just outside of basic attack. This would really put the title Master in Mesmer, because the regular clones aren't really difficult to spot given you fought a few Mesmer before. And that's just one thing that comes up on top of my head in mere moments. The point is, there are so many ways to go about this. Instead of just giving out weapons to every class, which at that point, you're just taking away their identities. It is what it is, unfortunate, but I'm not too surprised considering nowadays people would rather bend over and tell you how awesome or cool something looks, when in reality, anyone with an IQ above room temperature can clearly see you've been eating horse this whole time. Alright, let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or perhaps you have some suggestions as well? Let me know in the comments. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing and leaving a like as well, and I'll catch you later.